Well, hey, good morning. Hey, congrats on making a winning decision to be here. I mean, a lot of you guys probably drove in a ways to get here, and there are people that probably live 5 minutes from here that could have been here, should have been here, aren't here. And so, congratulations on doing that. I still make a mean burrito, by the way. What he's referencing is that was the last job I actually had when I was in school. I worked in a hotel, like front desk, and I was a porter one time, carried luggage up, and worked in restaurants. And the last one was this place called New York Burrito in Hattiesburg. And I can't remember if it was 2019, 20, somewhere around there. And I was making minimum wage. Does anybody know what minimum wage was in 1999, 2000?
25.
Oh man, I thought I was balling if I was making $6.25. I think it was $5.15 an hour is what I was making, and I don't even think there were tips involved. So I'm not really sure how smart I am on that one, but I was making burritos. It was kind of like Subway. Think like when you go in Subway, they put the little gloves on, but it was burritos, and I could again still make a mean burrito today. So excited to not be making burritos for a living for sure. But I got in the business in 2000. So this September is actually my 21st year in the business, my 21st anniversary from when I did my IBA, but grew up probably 10 minutes from here. So y'all know where anybody from this area know where Old Fannin Road is? Out by the reservoir, kind of near Dogwood. So that's where I grew up, and I have been here pretty much my whole life. I went to school here, then down in Southern Hattiesburg, graduated down there. And how I found the company was definitely a God thing. It was not my plan. I went to Southern because they have a good psychology program, and I'm thinking I like to help people. What better way than be a psychologist? And took some psychology program kind of classes at first, second semester down there inside that program, and realized real quick I am too ADD to sit still all day for one, and two, there's a whole lot of smart people here. I don't know if I could do this. And so I went to my advisor and I said, I don't know what I want to do with my life now. It's not a psychologist. I don't think I can do that. And when you don't know what you want to do with your life, what they tell you is major in business. And so that's what I did. That's what I finished up with, was just a general business degree. And like I said earlier, I was making burritos, working in front desk at hotels. I didn't want to do that. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so probably 4 months before I graduated, I sent out resumes to every business that I'd ever heard of, probably 30 or 40 resumes in Hattiesburg. And thinking if I could get an internship somewhere, maybe that would help me get my foot in the door. They would see my work ethic and that kind of stuff. And none of them called me. But one of them, I'm guessing this is how they did it. One of them, I'm thinking, gave my resume to somebody at David's brother's office in Hattiesburg, Mike Landrum's office. And so they called me, and I had not applied there. I'd never heard of Primerica, but they called me in. And the guy that called me in that was doing the interview had only been there for 2 weeks, literally. He had just started 2 weeks before. And so do you think he knew a whole lot about the company or not a whole lot? So all he knew to do was tell me everything he knew. And so he literally threw up on me everything he knew for an hour. And I was like, whoa, man, this sounds like a great company. But, for me, I'm introverted. My worst classes at Southern, literally, no joke here, was like public speaking and finance. Kind of ironic now that I'm in front of a group talking about finance. But God's got a sense of humor. But anyway, he said that, and I said, I just don't think I'd be interested. It sounds like a great company. I've heard of companies like Edward Jones and Merrill Lynch like this. It's kind of how it came across to me. And I said, I just, probably not for me, though, because I'm not a finance guy. I'm not a sales guy. I'm introverted, just my personality. And so probably wouldn't be good for me. And had he not said this next thing, I don't know if I'd be standing here, which is crazy. He said, well, Jared, why don't you, say if you're looking for an internship, why don't you do an internship with us? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, just come to the trainings. We have trainings once or twice a week. Get the life license and the securities license. You'll learn all about personal finance, and that'll be good for you when you graduate. Back then, they were owned by Citigroup, which was like today is a publicly traded company. And it would look good on my resume. And he said, why don't you do that? You got 3.5, 4 months before you graduate. That'd look good on your resume. Internship, financial company, Fortune 500. And I said, now that sounds good. His name is Jody. I said, that sounds good, Jody, but I'm quitting in 3.5 months. You got to be okay with that. And so I literally told him I was quitting in 3.5, 4 months. And so during the internship, I got my licenses real quick in about 8 weeks, because that was the internship, came to all the trainings. And I started meeting some of the RVPs that were a little further along that could explain it in a different way than he did. And I started seeing a lot of the intangibles of the business, things like they worked their own schedules. They loved what they did, which was highly unusual to me, because it was like the people I knew in corporate America, they did it, but they weren't in love with it. They didn't believe in it. It wasn't something they were doing to right or wrong. There was none of that in corporate America. It was a job, right? And I started seeing these average ordinary people. They weren't these finance majors. They weren't these super sharp, like the kind of person in my head I would think would be making six figures. They were just average ordinary people that had really applied themselves and really went to work and had flexible schedules and stability and loved what they did and were doing good in the community. And so when they started talking about how we've got this many offices and we need this many more offices and there's this huge demand, it started turning the wheels in my head. And they said the average income back then, I think it was around 120,000 a year. Nobody in my family made that kind of income. So that was so far above my thinking at the time. But in my head, I cut it in half. I said, if I could, I didn't say this out loud, but if I could make 50 or 60,000 a year in Mississippi, right? Live where I want to live, work when I want to work, not have some boss with their thumb on me telling me what I had to wear and when I could take my lunch and how long I could do and all that stuff. Like I could have freedom and make 50, 60,000 a year. That'd be a pretty good deal. And so by the time I got done with that 3.5 month internship, I had realized, you know what, maybe this is where God wants me to plant my flag. And I did that. I planted my flag and said, I'm going to be a vice president. I might not be like, you know, that guy, like a David. I could never like talk like him, have his confidence, But if I could be half as good as the average RVP, right, that'd be pretty good. And so that's what I did. I went out there and the next 12 months went full time. Got an office after about 12 months, went RVP 6 months later. So it took us about 2 years total to go RVP. Good bit of that was part-time. And then I think that second year we clicked over 50,000 and I got comfortable. And, you know, I wish I could say I just kept going and flying up, but I didn't. I got comfortable. And the next year is kind of like the further you go when you're driving at night, the further you can see. So when I got to 50, I could see 60. And when I got to 60, I could see 70. And so I progressed. But it took me probably 6 or 7 years to get to six figures. It wasn't a Primerica thing. It was my belief thing. I just didn't believe I could do it. And, you know, if you've got something that you don't believe you can do, you won't usually even try for it. You won't even go for it. And but slowly my belief in kind of the crock pot of Primerica grew, and I got to six figures. And then fast forward to kind of 2010, I was making really great income. I mean, in Mississippi, if you're making, especially back 10 years ago, 140,000, 130,000 a year. That's pretty good in Mississippi, right? Yeah. And I was reading in the Bible in Matthew, the parable of the talents. It was around 2010. And a lot of you are familiar with that story. There's three kind of characters in it, main ones. And they were given talents, which was kind of a multiple of annual income, basically. It's opportunity. And the first one took the opportunity they were given and did something with it. They doubled it. The second one doubled their opportunity. The third one, I think out of fear, buried it in the sand and didn't do anything with it. And then when the owner came back, he gave more to the two that did something with it, nothing to the third one. Didn't work out real well for that third one. And so I was sitting here looking at my business, and I was 10 years in making the average RVP income maybe a little bit higher, but I realized I was working 10 or 15 hours a week. And I was comfortable. And I was, you know, I don't know, I was living a life of leisure and luxury at that point, kind of my version of that. And I heard David Leonard, he taught me something one time, and he's taught me so much over the last 20 years, but he said a life of purpose and passion is so much better than a life of luxury and leisure. And so when I was reading that, it was like God reached down and slapped me upside the head and said, you aren't really working. You aren't really taking advantage of this one. You know, I believe today, I believe back then, if you can make 200,000, 300,000, 400, and you don't because you get comfortable at 100, if you could open 5 offices or 10 offices and you don't because you're comfortable with one, shame on us. Because couldn't we do more good for our families, for our communities, for our churches if we had more resources? See, I believe God will get to us what he can get through us, right? I'm not going to try to get up here and preach, right? I'm just kind of telling you my story, my path. But we realized, hey, we're not even touching the potential of this thing. And so we went to work in 2010. I think I was playing with it till then. And we decided, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to actually kind of follow in the footsteps of what David and Jill and Mike and Amy had been teaching us for 10 years, right? They'd set the example. They'd laid the path for us. They, you know, multiple times a month, they were teaching us what to do. It just took me a decade to hear it. And once we caught on to that and we started listening and started really following what they were coaching us to do, then everything changed. And our income went from that 130 to 600 in literally under 48 months. I mean, it was like that. And so fast forward today, I think we've got 22 or 23 RVPs, a whole bunch of offices, a whole bunch of states. And I feel like we're just getting started. I feel like we just, It's so good today. Like, I'm more excited today about our future, about the people coming in the business, their future, because I see how fast people are moving. And it amazes me. I mean, what took some people, some of us, 5 years or 6 years or 7 years to do, people are doing in 24 months. So it's not that it's any easier to do what we do, which I'm going to talk about today. It's just sped up. You can go so much faster. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today, is kind of an overview of our company, because we never want to take for granted the newest person in the room. When I got started, they never said, oh, this meeting right here is just for seasoned people, or just for licensed people, or just for RVPs. They had this very transparent philosophy of, look, we don't have closed door meetings. You want to come sit in, you want to bring your spouse who's not even in the business to come sit in and see what we stand for, see what we believe in, then come on, and then you can kind of get out of it what you want. We have this office environment of grace here, where we're not going to make you be something you're not, but it's just an incredible mixture of people and company and culture. And so that's what I want to talk about. Now, I do want to show you real quick, because I've had people ask, do I do anything special on the clicker to make it click?
And I was about to say, it's not showing on Zoom, Craig. I'm looking at your. Okay.
Oh, okay, got it.
No.
It's the big one in the middle. Yep, there you go. Okay. So I've had a few of you guys, because we haven't seen each other in like a year and a half, ask about my kids. And so we have 3 kids now. We've been married 17 years this October, but I have 3. So this is Drew. He's my 8-year-old. He and I go hiking all the time. So that's him and I recently in Arkansas. My middle child is, where do I point it at? There you go. Is Abby. So that's my 6-year-old. Her and I do date night. She loves Table 100. I don't know if y'all ever been there, but she can't remember Table 100. So it's 100 table. Daddy, when can we go to 100 table? And so her and I do date nights, just her and I. And of course, her and my mom, her and her mom, my wife Kim, do that more. And then this is my youngest, Alex. And you can see this is when mom was out of town and dad cannot match clothes. I'm not very color coordinated, and neither can Alex. But that's our 3. And so those are our 3 current kids. I say current. Kim tells me we are absolutely done biologically. I'm cut off. No more kids that way. But we're actually in the process of getting foster care certified right now, which is really cool. And so we've done everything. We've got a little home studies, if any of y'all are familiar with that. And so we may be adopting soon. So we'll see what God has in store for us there. Okay, so what I want to talk about today, though, is what David said, is kind of an overview of the company. And then for those of you that are already really in the business and have your flags planted at the very end, here in a few minutes, I'm going to give you a 5-year game plan to get ownership that I've laid out for my guys. And I've had some of my guys do this so that if you really want to lay it on the line and really want to get totally financially free, you can do that. And, when I do, speak to a group like this of 40, 50 people plus a whole bunch online, or 1,000 people, usually in a room like this, there's 3 kind of different places people are, seasons they are in business. Probably 5 or 10% of the people in a room like this and people online are doing really well. You walked into this meeting, you just got a promotion or 2 here, you're making it your highest income, you feel great about where you're headed, just got you full of belief. And then there's another end of the spectrum, like another 5 or 10% that you came in here like dragging your like broke leg behind you, because this thing has kicked you in the teeth. And maybe because you didn't pass your test the first time, or maybe whatever the deal is that you're kind of growing and learning, but you're like, I'm coming here, I got to fill up my battery, but it ain't full, it's flat. And that's probably another 5 or 10%. And a lot of times that's even out of your control. A lot of times it could be a health issue, family issues. We all got stuff going on. And then usually there's probably 80, 90% that are kind of in the middle. They're not doing really bad or really good. They just kind of feel stuck. Like, man, I want to get out of this rut. And that could be in Primerica. That could be in a job. It could be in a relationship, whatever. And so for the 5 or 10% that came in, really, it's tough right now. I'm going to pray for you, right? I'll keep you in my prayers. For the 5 or 10% that are doing really good, awesome, right? Gas it while you're doing good. But for the 80 or 90%, I hope some of the stuff I say today will help you get unstuck, help you kind of go to that next level and get out of, a lot of times what I felt in my life was a kind of rut where I was just stuck spinning my tires, motion was happening, but I wasn't moving forward, right? And so that's my heart. And here's my heart too. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. I've made every mistake you can make. Going back to Mike's office, I was not the poster child. If you would have lined up 20 people in that office and said, hey, you know how you, like in 3rd grade, you would pick teams for like, you know, soccer or baseball or whatever. And like, you want that guy, right? You want that guy. And you're like, In the Primerica office, you would have picked me last to be the one that did this, because I'm the shy, introverted, like have lots of anxiety in big groups early on, like all the stuff that you're thinking, man, that guy's probably not gonna make it. That was me. Over analytical, all that stuff. The neat thing about Primerica though is it's a crock pot that if you don't quit, they don't fire you. I mean, you can get fired if you do something stupid like break a law, but any intelligent person not gonna do that. So other than that, they won't quit on you. They'll work with you until you win. And I'm so thankful for that they threw me a jersey and kept working with me and let me grow up in business. And so the opportunity is huge. And what I'm going to talk about is three things. I'm going to talk about the demand for the newest person in here, maybe even somebody watching online for the first time that doesn't even know what Primerica does. I'm going to talk about our solutions, some examples of what we do. And then I'm going to talk about our system, especially for the ones that are already in the business, and give you maybe some tips to help you accelerate your career and move forward and hopefully really take advantage of this. But here's the reality, and y'all know this. I mean, consumers are frustrated. They've been sold stuff they've not been taught. And if I were to ask you questions, do you think most people have debt or don't have debt? What would y'all answer to that? Yeah. Do you think most people know how to save wisely for college and retirement? Have no clue how to do that.
No clue.
No clue how to do that. Yeah. Do you think most people are on track to be financially independent? Not. Don't have any idea how to do it. So therefore they're not on track. And so if you look at our business, before I talk about specifically how we fix that stuff, I think if we had this big grandiose vision of we're going to help middle America solve all those problems, we're going to help them get out of debt and retire and put their kids through college and get financially independent, and we didn't have some big company with a track record behind us, I think that would be some grandiose dream in the clouds that we couldn't accomplish. But the company that we represent is not new. It's been around 44 years now, since 77. We have more licensed people, advisors than any other company publicly traded New York Stock Exchange. Millions of people use us and trust us to do their finances for them. Highest ratings you can get. Forbes ranked us as one of the most trustworthy companies. And it's brilliant how Primerica is positioned in the marketplace. So here's what Primerica realized way back when, 40-something years ago. They said, you know what? There's a lot of companies that make financial products. There's companies that make banking products like lending stuff and insurance products and investments. There's no company though that teaches people how the stuff works. There's no company that is consumer friendly that teaches middle income how to save wisely and do it the ethical, moral way. And so why don't we step into that gap, and then let's surround ourselves with the biggest, best financial firms that already have the products. And so that's what they did. And some of these companies you probably recognize, American Funds, just American Funds alone has over 60 million clients in the US, right? Fidelity, Travelers, Quicken Loans, all these companies are just a handful of the roughly 110, 120 different companies that we can use, bring all those services under one roof and help people. Now you'll see a little question mark up at the top. What's the next one we're going to add? Well, we just bought a company, and this is a huge thing if you haven't heard about this, called eTeleQuote. And it's a company that does like senior advantage, Medicare, stuff like that. And that's not even the good thing about it. The good thing about it is that Primerica's never done this before. They've always partnered with companies and said, hey, let's offer their services, their products, but they've never said, hey, let's buy a company. This is the first time in 44 years they've said, let's buy one instead of just partnering with them. This changes the dynamic of our business. And here's why. We get ownership here in two forms: stock ownership when you go RVP, plus you get ownership where you can sell your business. So when a company that we partner with, that we work with, that we can own, says, you know what, we got an extra $500 million to buy that company and scoop it up under us, that opens the door for possibilities a lot of us in here ain't even thought about. What is anything that money touches? Think in the future, lending, not Quicken Loans lending, but what if they could come through you to buy a car, not just a home or anything else they want? What if, right, all these people need their taxes done. What if we didn't just partner with an H&R Block? What if we said, hey, let's buy it, or a Jackson Hewitt or something like that? And you could go down the list, anything that money touches, anything that finance touches, Primerica's probably behind the scenes looking at it. And so it's exactly what Walmart did. If you look at their model back in the 60s, they didn't have partnerships and own all that stuff initially. It was like Walmart was the one-stop shop, but it really wasn't. It was just like stuff in the middle of the store. Then they added the tires and the oil changes on one side, and then the food section, and then the electronics in the back, and then the hair care stuff up front. And then they had a McDonald's over here to Subway, and they kept adding stuff. They're still doing that as they're opening new offices. So our job, are we supposed to sit around thinking about what's the next best product we need to partner with? Nope, we let the people at home office do that. We let the regulators do all that. Our job is, how many branches can we get open? How many licensed people can we get licensed, so that when, not if, but so that when we buy a e-telequote, or we buy a H&R Block, or we buy a merge with, that expands our business instantly. And so it's a brilliant business model. Guys, that we're not just revolutionizing, Primerica is not just revolutionizing the financial industry, it's revolutionizing just the business industry in general. They will do studies about our business model in business school, probably in the next 5-10 years, because we're accelerating so much faster than other companies. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, now here's the need. I love the fact that our company philosophy, what we do, can be explained on one slide. I love this, the simplicity of what we do. So don't miss it. A lot of the most brilliant businesses in the world are not these convoluted, complicated business models. It's something very simple where there's a demand in the market and they filled it and met it. And so our business on the slide is this. Here's the need in the market. When people out there are getting older, right, from young, getting out of college, that's when they usually start having kids, and they usually have a lot of debt and a mortgage. Let me ask you a question. If somebody died at that stage, good or bad financially for the family? What do you think? Bad. Okay, when they get older, kids grow up, leave home, they have paid down their debt, paid off their home. At that point, you think most 60, 65-year-olds would rather have $500,000 of life insurance or $500,000 of cash that they can get to at any time? Which one would they rather have, insurance or cash? Cash. So what we do to keep people getting financially hurt if they die too soon, or financially hurt if they live too long, is we teach them to buy low-cost term life insurance, what all the consumer advocates teach, so they're protected. We teach them how to get debt-free, so they become debt-free, and we teach them how to invest wisely, so they get financially independent. Guys, that is such a simple concept, and it amazes me still after 20 years that no other companies do this. No other companies help the 95% of the market out there with something that's so obviously a huge need. Almost everybody wants to get out of debt. Almost everybody wants to take care of their family. And almost everybody wants to get financially independent. And nobody's doing it except for America. Now, well, Jared, there's other financial companies. Yeah, but they're not doing that. See, lending companies, when you walk in your bank, does your bank want to get you out of debt or keep you in debt? Keep you in debt. Now, I don't want to step on toes here, but let's talk about insurance agents for a second. You think most insurance agents would rather like teach you the best thing to do for your family, what's good for you, or sell you what they make the most money on? Which one? It's about the money, right? And then investment advisors, I've got friends that are investment advisors. Do they want to work with the bottom 95% where I grew up, not much money, not much income, or just that top 5%, kind of where the wealth and the income is? Which one do they focus on?
Only the 5.
Only the 5. And we work in the 5, guys, but nobody works in the 95. So we work in the 100. We work in all of it and have no competition in the bottom 95. So it's absolutely brilliant what we do. Now, here's where we are from a business standpoint. I studied this in school. That businesses go through these growth stages. And so early on, it's called the infancy stage. Think McDonald's back in the 60s, Walmart in the 60s. They really don't know what works. They're making mistakes, screwing things up, kind of figuring out how it goes. There's no long-term track record. Then you move into this kind of sweet spot, this accelerated growth stage, where it's been around long enough where they figured out what works, what doesn't work. There's a solid long-term track record. The leaders know what works, right? It's still tough because it's not name saturated. Everybody doesn't know what it does. So they're like, what's McDonald's, right? When Ray Kroc went around selling McDonald's franchises, there were places he went in the 60s and 70s to where they had newspaper articles talking about this guy's in town trying to sell like this hamburger franchise for $1,000. Don't buy it, right? I mean, everybody can make a better hamburger than McDonald's. It's a ripoff. And like he had all these critics and people telling him he was crazy. And it wasn't the hamburger, it was the system. They just didn't get that. It was the franchise, right? And so it's still tough because not name saturated, still had multiple areas. Then you move into a maturity stage where most areas are known, full name awareness, everybody knows what it is, what it does. Well, here's where Primerica is. Now look, you can be in the midst of something though and miss it. If you look back to Blockbuster in the year 2000, they had 8,000 stores. Y'all remember Blockbuster, right? 8,000 stores. Well, Reed Hastings, I think is his name, he was the CEO of Netflix, went to Blockbuster in 2000 and said, hey, I've got this thing. That's when Netflix was DVDs by mail. Some of y'all even remember that. You're old enough to do that. And like you would go to the little, like get them in the mail. We had a DVD in the mail subscription, right? Little red envelopes, you peel them up, put them back in. And so anyway, he went to him and said, hey, I'll sell you Netflix for $50 million. They laughed him out of the meeting. They said, you're an absolute loon. We're worth like $100 billion. We're Blockbuster. We have 8,000 stores. You're this little fledgling DVD by mail. Like they literally laughed him out of the room. Guys, fast forward to 2007, Blockbuster lost $1.1 billion that year. They'd gone down to 24 million value company from several billion. Fast forward to 2010, they were like going like this. By 2013, they closed all the stores except one, which was like some kind of iconic, keep it open because we want to remember Blockbuster. They were done. And Netflix was worth $50 billion. They missed it. They had $50 million to Blockbuster in 2000 was nothing, chunk change. They could have bought Netflix. They missed it. And laughed Reed Hastings. They were at the right place at the right time and totally missed it. And my heart is I don't want you to miss this. So I'm going to talk. Okay, I got a question for you. I got to be honest on this one. Is there anybody, who's probably 2 or 3 in here, that is a nerd? Like you like Excel sheets and numbers and like, go on, right? I did not know that about you, right? So there's 2 people that are admitting to being nerds and like Excel sheets and stuff like that. Okay, everybody else for the next 60 seconds, you can just tune this part out. But I always, every time I talk, I have the nerds come up after and like, give me some numbers. I need to know the numbers, right? The tangible numbers. And so this is for them. Here's where we are in Mississippi. We've got about 10 growth offices. Now we got about 40 or 50 offices in Mississippi. And one of the dangers in Primerica is you can start making a real high income and start earning residual incomes and making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year and just service clients and not keep growing. I think a growth office is one that's getting a couple licenses or more a month. This is one of the biggest growth offices in the state. Y'all's trajectory is going like this. So if you're in this office, you're in the right place, right? But there's only about 10 statewide. This is one, mine's one in Flowood. There's a few others, right, spread out, but out of 40, there's 10, about 25% of them that are adding 2 new licenses a month. Well, we've got 2% market share here in Mississippi. We need 90 more growth offices. We're not even scratching the surface of the demand. Well, what do you mean, Jared? Well, here's why. There's about 3 million people in Mississippi, right? I know we got people out of state, but just as an example for here in Mississippi, there's about 38,000 people turning 25 entering our target market every single year, right? Getting older. That's expected for the next 2 decades, right? If you look at one office per 30,000 people, we need 100 offices. So I did this little thing, this little app online that you can go on and you can put a dot on a map and put the mileage and it tells you what's the population in an area. And so I put a dot on Jackson, and I don't know if you can see this number down here. There is 1.4, almost 1.5 million people within up here 90 miles of where we're sitting right now. Okay, this is to speak to how big of the potential and the market demand is in this area right here, right now. 2% market share means we've got about 29,000 clients. Now that stretches to Meridian, to Hattiesburg. That's not just Jackson. That's all over the 90-mile radius. Guys, that means there's 1.44 million people within an hour and a half of here that are not clients. And I'll ask you again, do you think most of those people have debt, don't have debt? You think most of them know how to save wisely, don't know how to save wisely? No. Every article I've read when I've studied Mississippi, 80% of the people in Mississippi that own life insurance own the wrong kinds or own none at all and have kids and have need. And so if you ever hear somebody say, well, there's, Primerica's been in, Mississippi for a long time. We've had offices there. The only thing that's going to get saturated is your mind. We won't saturate this market in our children's lifetime. Guys, you could go RVP in this office and that building over there, open an RVP Primerica office, y'all would never cross paths. You might in the afternoons every once in a while wave as you're passing by each other right in your cars. You would never cross paths. There's such a big market. So don't let anybody ever tell you there is a market anywhere in America that is saturated because it's only 2 to 3% market share. Nationwide, we have such a huge opportunity. Now there are 3 paths I think you can go here. You can be part-time with us and be a financial coach and I've got people make $20,000 to $40,000 a year part-time. You can be a vice president or you can be a senior vice president and above. And so, well, Jared, what's our business model? Is it like corporate or is it a franchise? I've had a lot of people ask me this. And so I think this is the best way to look at it is there's 4 main business models and each one has pros and cons. So corporate, you work at Nissan, everybody knows what Nissan is, right? You get the lease and the extra good cars for real low cost, right? And like all the benefits of that. It's professional, you have no liability, no payroll. but you have a limit on what you can make. You have zero job security. They found that out in COVID, right? And right now, a lot of them are still laid off and furloughed, right? No ownership, no overrides. Well, Jared, what about if I want to buy a franchise? Well, you would own it. There are systems in place. You do get overrides, which is profit, and you can leave that for your kids. The negatives are, I've never seen an inexpensive franchise, upfront or ongoing. They're all super high cost and they all go up over time, right? Franchising fees, payroll liability. Well, Jared, what if I want to go into real estate? Did you know there's more real estate agents licensed right now in America than there are homes for sale? You want to talk about a saturated market, right? Nothing against if you're a real estate agent, right? Keep doing it, but you're here, right? So you can have two streams of income. Right? Brokerage model though, unlimited size, flexibility, overrides, but you always lose your best people. Think about it. If I'm a broker and I hire somebody comes in my real estate brokerage company and they're super sharp and they go out, they sell a house and they, earn $6,000 for the company, but they only get half of it and the other half goes to me and or who are the other owners. How long do you think it's going to take them to figure out they want to be a broker themselves when they realize the broker's getting some of their income? Is it going to be 2 days, 10 days, 2 months? It's going to be pretty quick. So your best people in brokerage, you always lose them. They always get their own broker license. You're training your competition. And then there's all these direct sales things that have popped up. And I've never been involved in any of those things. And again, no knock on you if you have. The things that meet in hotels or just do online and selling this juice or that kind of thing. The pros, you can hire part-time people. You have no territories. You can't get overrides. Here's the problem with them. You can't make money by yourself. I've never seen one of those things that is a legit business model that you can go do it without having hundreds and thousands of people and make money. In this room right now, all of us, every one of us know people that are in banking or insurance or investments that don't recruit, that just go do that thing that makes six-figure incomes, much less ones that have all the offices. So can Jared, somebody come here and never recruit anybody, make six figures? We have tons of folks that do that. Justin Giroux, he would self-describe himself as not a recruiter. He's at what, 1.2, 1.3 million a year? And if it's 1.3, 1.28 of it is his pen, just by himself helping people with investments, he's not a recruiter. Now, that's not the business I want. I want a business that whether I'm there or not, it pays me passive income, but for absolutely sure you can come here and do that without it. Now, what Primerica did, and I don't even know if they intentionally did this, it was just brilliant how they put it together, is they said, you know what, not any one of those is a good thing, right? The direct sales thing, eventually, if it's a good juice, Walmart's going to buy it, put it on their shelves and fire all the salespeople. That's happened multiple times, right? They fire the salespeople, put it on their shelf, put it online, right? It's not a viable business. If it can be put on a shelf, it will eventually be put on a shelf if it's legit. So what Primerica did is, and not one of these is good, why don't we make a hybrid business model? I think the closest thing it is a brokerage, but it's a hybrid brokerage where it cuts out the cons and puts the pros together and into a business model that has all of those pros without the negatives. Well, Jared, what's the catch? You got to get some licenses. You got to find good people. Toughest thing in any business is finding good people. You got to be a real leader. You got to treat people right. You got to believe in what we do. It takes a little bit of time. It's not overnight. But we've had people recently talking about licensing. I was telling David before this that we had a guy just start May 10th, did his IBA on May 10th. Talk about how fast licensing can work now. IBA on May 10th, did his class on Monday, did his class Tuesday, Wednesday, took his life test Friday, passed it. Did the SAE class Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, studied Monday, Tuesday, took his SAE Tuesday, passed it. Submitted his U4, studied that next week for his 6, scheduled it for Friday, took his 6 Friday, his 63 Saturday. The 6, by the way, is 2/3 of the same stuff as the SAE. He was already 2/3. Minute he passed his SAE, he was already 2/3 of the way done with his 6. Right? It's 2/3 overlap. Took his 6 Friday, 63 Saturday by June, and then took 3 days to get appointed. By June 9th, he was fully licensed, fully appointed from day one, inside of 30 days. Wow. So, well, Jared, dang, that's a stud. Yeah, he studied. He worked for that. I'm not saying anybody gave that to him. I get to the office about 7:45 in the morning after I drop my kids off. He beat me to the office 3-4 days out of 5 each week that he was there already. And he's not working. He was able to quit his job and come full time with us. So he had more time to study. But here's the reality is that if somebody's motivated and they want to get it done, now the 4-minute mile, at least in this area, is we had a guy come in under 30 days, in 28, 29 days, start and get fully licensed and appointed inside of 30 days. How long would you like to do it? Right? So again, it's those 4-minute miles that are being broken. Everything is speeding up. Not that you have to go that fast, but it can be done that fast. So it's just a better place. So last couple slides I'm going to give you. You might want to take a picture of this if you have a phone. I'll pull it all up. This is for those of you that want to go out there and get totally financially free. See, Primerica started doing this unique thing 10 years ago. They started letting us get full ownership of our businesses. where whenever we want to sell them, we can sell them for 8 to 12 times our income. It's brilliant. What would you work harder for? Some big company you managed a branch for, like a Wells Fargo, that could lay off at any time, or something you own that's going to be in your family forever? Which one would you work harder for? Something you work for, something you own? Something you own. And so I've had people say, well, Jared, how long should it take? How long can it take? Can I get to full ownership? The fastest way to do that is to get to 300,000 a year in income. And some of you, that mountain seems so high, it's like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could do that. Here's my encouragement to you. Don't think that's someone else's story. That's not their story, right? That's their story, but that's not their story. That's your story. That is your story if you'll make a decision and commit to do it. And here's the way to do it. Get to RVP. I think there's 2 things you need to do to get to RVP, right? Overall, it's just 2 licenses and a productive team. If you get 2 licenses and a productive team, don't make it bigger than it is. 2 licenses and a productive team. We want to promote you to RVP. David Landrum is an OSJ. I'm an OSJ. There's maybe 4 or 5 of us in the state. We sign off on you going RVP. I promise you, David and I have had conversations. We want you to be an RVP. Like, he has the paperwork probably sitting on his desk with your name on it, ready to sign as soon as you hit the requirements for you to go. We want you to be RVP. Company needs 5,000 more, right? So line up. Okay, here's the 2 things I think you've got to do to go RVP, right? The first one is you've got to believe that you can do it. See, a lot of people in a room like this online, they believe in Primerica. It's a good company. It teaches what's right. It's solid. It's not a scam. It's real. It's publicly traded. That's not the kind of belief I'm talking about. You need that. The real belief, the belief to go RVP, is believe that you can do this. That's the belief that you've got to get in your heart. You've got to believe that I'm good enough to do this, that if I get better and keep trying, that's the first thing. Second thing is you got to line up with your RVP. Look, if I'm in Lawrence and Stephanie's base shop, if I'm in David's base shop, I'm finding out what their base shop goal is for the month. Like in my base shop, we've got this, I've been posting it everywhere. It's on my screensaver on my phone, is 30 by 30. The biggest base shop I've ever had was around 80, 90,000. I think we clicked over 100,000 one time. But here's magic. When you've got a RVP base shop that's at 30 by 30 or bigger, RVPs start popping out like that. It's an RVP factory. So I'm selling my base shop on 30 by 30, 30 recruits coming in, 30,000, about 30, 35 clients a month coming in that we're helping across the board. When we get to that point, right, we're real close right now. We get to that point consistently, we start promoting RVPs like that. And so I'm selling my team. So the second key, if you want to go RVP, is find out what your RVP's goal is and be the biggest reason they hit that. See, the people in my base shop that are sold on that are going for that, here's what it makes them do. It makes them focus on recruiting and premium. It makes them focus on licensing and helping people get going and promotions. And by them pushing toward the team goal, then it not only helps the whole team, it builds belief in the whole team, but they win also. And so that's how to go RVP really fast. And one thing I heard Kyle Temple say one time, in any point right now, you could be the newest person in this room. You're only 6 to 12 months away from going RVP at any point in your career. 6 to 12 months away. That's how long it takes to go RVP. When you start doing the right stuff with the right attitude, the right intensity, 6 to 12 months, you're an RVP. And so if you do that, you go RVP, you keep doing what you did to get to RVP, you keep building your business, your team gets bigger, you're going to start helping 30, 40 clients a month. In that, you're going to find people like me I was a big project, right? I'm still growing every day, but here's what I realized. I want to be an RVP. So I popped my head up. I started running and doing the stuff. So then you'll find somebody that wants to go RVP. You do that first. I mean, the 3rd, 4th, 5th year, you'll be a senior vice president. You'll be making an average of 300,000 a year. You'll have full ownership. And you could sell it, I promise you. If you got to that point and said, you know what, I just don't think Primerica's for me, but I think I want to sell it. Go see David. I promise you, he will write you a check and buy your business. If David says, no, I don't want it, you come see me next. I will buy your business, right? Because they are extremely valuable. And we know how to, and you guys would too. I know you probably keep a check in your wallet like I do, right, to buy somebody's. And so we would do that in a heartbeat because we know how to keep them going and growing. Guys, overall, we've got 5,000 offices. We're going to head to 10,000. So we're just at this really special place right now. And you can come in and be a financial coach. And look, I'd love to have 100 like that. If your goals, look, if I was talking so big today, like Jared, this 6-figure stuff, I'm a teacher, I'm a minister, whatever. I just want to make 1,000 a month and help people. Income's not even really that important. I just want to help people. Look, we got a place for you. We want you here because you're going to help people that we would not meet, that we wouldn't know. We want you here, right? If you want to be a vice president, have an office, or if you want to be a franchiser and you want to do what they've done, what David's done, what I've done, and not only have a office, but train people to have offices and then just be able to make huge impact in your community. I mean, how cool would it be? I think all of us have these God-given desires in our heart. Ours are helping people with adoptions, international missions, stuff like that. How cool would it be if I heard about like a church 5 years from now, several of you in here, several of you online are making real high incomes, and we've got a little kind of group that we meet once a month, and we find something we want to donate to, and we hear about a church across town that's got 40 kids that want to go on a 2-week trip to India, but it's going to cost $80,000 and they can't afford to do that. And we could just like pool our money together, right? 1 day income from the last quarter or something, and write a check and pay for it anonymously, not put it on the front page of the news, right? Do it storm treasure where it really matters. How cool would it be to make impact like that? Oh, I heard about this church over here. They've got some debt. Let's write a check this month, pay that church's debt off. That kind of stuff. Like, what's God put on your heart? What are the things, not just surviving, right? I think God's a God of abundance. It's what kind of things could we write checks for? You know what most of those things need? It's not your time. It's your money. It's your resources. That's what they need. And so what better place for us to have this platform right here to earn income, to be able to bless people. Guys, I'm going to leave you with this. God uses flawed people. Man, am I flawed, right? And it's the last thing I'll say. And my encouragement is that you're at the right place at the right time. You just can still be there and miss it. So don't run with us. Go to work. But here's what God says in the Bible, what God shows us, right? Abraham was old. Elijah was suicidal. Joseph was abused. Job went bankrupt. Moses had a speech problem. Gideon was afraid. Samson was a womanizer. Rahab was a prostitute. The Samaritan woman was divorced. Noah was a drunk. Jeremiah was young. Jacob was a cheater. David was a murderer. Jonah ran from God. Naomi was a widow. Peter denied Christ 3 times. Martha worried about everything. Zacchaeus was small and money hungry. The disciples fell asleep while praying. Paul, a Pharisee, persecuted Christians before becoming one. Jesus didn't call the equipped. He equipped the called. And I think if you're here, my lasting challenge for you is, one is you've got to pray about this and know you're supposed to be here. Mike Sharp taught me that a long, long time ago. You've got to know that this is where God wants you. Otherwise, the first little roadblock that comes up, first time you take a test, don't pass it, you need to take it in, you'll reevaluate whether you're supposed to be here. So I think if you're going to win here, you got to plant your flag and know you're supposed to be here. Second thing is you got to go to work. And once you do that, once you decide and commit and go to work, everything changes. Guys, I hope y'all got something from that. Y'all have a great day.